What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Doug Las Vegas Bets UFC betting show. We're back after a week off from that fantastic fight night where Arnold Allen and Doo Ho Choi capped things off for us nicely. Another early start time here for the second time this month as we head to Macau, China for a fight night headlined by Yadong Song taking on former flyweight champ Deiveson Figueiredo. I'm super excited for this one, super excited to be back, so without further ado, let's get into things. Start things off with the aforementioned main event between Yadong Song and Deiveson Figueiredo. The home team fighter, if you will, Yadong Song, will start there. He's still just 28 officially. Came into the UFC super young, and he's already built up a wealth of experience against a lot of high-level guys, a bunch of former champions. In his last 3 fights, he's fought 3 former champions. So that's the level of competition that this guy's been dealing with. And he's shown a really well-rounded skill set. I mean, he's obviously a striker. Boxing is his main asset. Got some strong low kicks coming out of Team Alpha Male. But we have seen him mix in the wrestling a little bit. His ground game is definitely legit. I mean, he couldn't get anything going against Sean O'Malley, but obviously there was nothing doing for Cejudo. And he was actually taking down Petr Yan, who, I mean, we know how good Petr Yan is on the ground now because we saw him defend all those takedowns from Rob Dvalishvili and reclaim the title. Well, we saw him defend the takedowns from Rob before that even, and Song got him down. So this guy's a more well-rounded mixed martial artist than I think he gets credit for. Like I said, he's still young at just 28 years old and got a ton of experience. I think this is one of those guys that we're going to just be talking about in the top 10 of the division forever. It's like 5 years from now, Song Yadong's still going to be sitting there in the top 10, just beating guys, losing to the top level. Just always going to be one of those guys on the cusp. I get the sense that he's going to be one of these guys that has good longevity. I don't know. He's always seemed incredibly durable, which is, again, something I don't think he gets much credit for. But, yeah, I think with him just being 28, I definitely see him hanging around the top for a long time, continuing to, round out his skills. And he's shown no real clear holes in his game. The guys who are beating him are the best of the best, the champ in Petr Yan, and a very close decision against Sean O'Malley. We had him as the underdog best bet of the week, unfortunately, that week, and I was really hoping to get the nod, but that one didn't go our way. And in that fight, I mean, he outstruck Sean O'Malley, even having success at points in rounds 1 and 2. Round 3, just Sean O'Malley completely took over and looked absolutely incredible. But I think that's more a testament to Sean O'Malley being one of the best strikers in the world than it is to Song Yadong being lower level. I just think that was a matter of O'Malley turned it up, and Yadong still ate the big shots. He showed that durability that I'm talking about there. But yeah, still, I think the label on him right now is one of those guys that just can't get over the hump. I mean, going back, he got the big fight with the Corey Sandhagen fight, got stopped by the doctor when that was going to be close on the scorecards. That was a close fight. Then Petr Yan at 29-28, where he loses the last 2 rounds. The second round was pretty close. Beats Cejudo, and then again, super close fight with O'Malley. So just one of those guys that's forever on the cusp to this point, but like I said, still young. Going over to Figueiredo, definitely not on the cusp anymore, and definitely not a guy who I think is still going to be around in 5 years. And you might think from me saying that I don't like Figueiredo. I love Figgy. I am a huge Figgy fan. The God of War, Deuce de Guerra, when he put the red stripe in his hair, that flyweight title run, the Moreno fights for years, just crazy, entertaining, powerful striking, insane powerful striking for a flyweight, insane scrambles as well, good submission game, saw him get Alex Perez in the first round with submissions. That being said, I'm reminiscing now because he's 38 years old, and since moving up to bantamweight, he looked all right at the start with the win over Marlon Vera, where it was a close fight through 2 rounds, and he sealed it with the late knockdown. Then the fight with Petr Yan, where he had moments, but over 5 rounds, it's going to be really hard to look good against Petr Yan. We have to keep acknowledging how good he is. Both these guys. The Corey Sandhagen performance was flat out terrible. Yeah, I don't know if that was a weird camp or an injury. Even before he went down, that performance was very odd from Figueiredo. But it clearly wasn't just a matter of him being so far over the hill he was done, because he came back and had a pretty solid win over Montel Jackson. Montel Jackson's not that good. I mean, we saw him lose to Raoni Barcelos in the close fight just a couple weeks ago. That just proves that Figueiredo still has the world championship skill set, and he's still going to find a hole in your game if it's there. And his last fight, he showed he's still pretty durable, still got the grappling. It's always going to be tough to submit high-level grapplers like him. So Umar was always going to have a tough time submitting him, although he was controlled throughout that fight. So as far as my pick for this one, I think you know where I'm going. I think the odds are about right. I think Yadong Song is deservedly a huge favorite. I'm picking him by decision because, like I said about the durability, it's still kind of there with Figueiredo. Obviously, the Sandhagen performance was awful, but it hasn't really been that long, just a year and a half since he went a hard 5 with Petr Yan. And Petr Yan doesn't really finish guys, but there was a lot going on in that fight where, you could have looked for a way out there. And then Montel Jackson's a hard hitter, obviously. So the fact that he wasn't really even touched in that fight was a good sign, I'll say. So I will take him by decision. But yeah, I mean, it really just boils down to Deiveson Figueiredo can still beat the Montel Jacksons of the world, but he's not coming close to beating Petr Yan, Umar Nurmagomedov, Corey Sandhagen, and Song Yadong, I think, now could even come closer than he has in the past against guys like Petr Yan. Maybe not in a 5-rounder for the Petr Yan fight specifically, but if you go back to like the Corey Sandhagen fight, I think that would be a really interesting rematch. Could be a big win for him in the future if they both win these fights, if he beats Figueiredo and Sandhagen beats Mario Bautista, but I'm getting ahead of myself now. As for my official pick, it's Song Yadong by decision. Don't know if I'm going to get involved in that from a betting perspective. I think props would be the only way I would get involved because the money line is very steep on Song Yadong here. On to the light heavyweights here in the co-main. As the last man to headline in China, I believe that was the last card in China anyways, Zhang Mingyang takes on Alonzo Menifield. So we'll start with the home team fighter. I'll just keep calling the Chinese fighters that. Zhang Mingyang here. He is a big power puncher, a bunch of first-round knockouts all over his resume, just 27 years old. Had the main event last time out, like I said. Unfortunately, that one did not go his way, and I think it showcased a lot of really concerning holes in his game. Mostly, my big note from that is that he's just a good hammer but a bad nail. You put him in front of these guys like Anthony Smith, Ozzy Diaz, Brenson Ribeiro, Tuco Tucas. Of course he's going to be the hammer. Of course he is the physically more imposing, more powerful guy. And when you give him that scenario, look what he does. He turns it into first round knockout after first round knockout. Then Johnny Walker gives him a little bit of trouble. It's not even that he wasn't more physically imposing than Johnny Walker. It's just he couldn't really be the hammer. He wasn't able to impose himself. And when the fight extended, eventually he faced some adversity and crumbled horrifically under it. Taking that leg kick, not even a second one, and just going down. One good thing I did take from that fight is his grappling defense. I suspect that it's improved a lot because I feel like Johnny Walker did that because they trained together and he felt like he could beat him on the ground. And Mingyang showed that nope, wasn't going to be that easy to take him down. In fact, he got top position off that for a bit. That being said, you can criticize that fight a bunch. It's really easy to pick apart, but you have to acknowledge the obvious danger in him. The 4 first-round knockouts against UFC caliber guys before that, just mowing through them. It was impressive. I mean, he's obviously a powerful guy. He's still young, so it's conceivable that he's still improving. So yeah, I think there's still upside for the future of Zhang Mingyang. It's just a question of where is he at right now and can he turn that corner? I don't think those are guarantees or inevitable aspects whatsoever. On the other side, Alonzo Menifield, he's 38. He's a veteran. He's given tough fights to a lot of guys. Got Omar C when he was a big favorite. Obviously, Ion Kutalaba did that as well, so C isn't who we thought he was. Also had that win over Julius Walker at the fights with Jimmy Crute, where he forced Jimmy Crute to retire, actually, after the second one. So this is a tough guy who's competed with a lot of solid competition across the division. Problem has been when you put him in there with a power striker, it's almost the same problem as Zhang. You could say he's a good hammer, but a bad nail. I mean, we've seen him fight through adversity before, but when he's fighting through adversity, it's against Julius Walker, who, with respect, I believe Julius Walker is a very low-level fighter in terms of UFC. I don't think it's a good sign to be getting rocked by him at all, especially if you're a guy who's lower end of the rankings. You want to be testing these future top 10 guys. And then you put him in there against guys with more experience, guys who are more legit, guys who are top 10 guys. Carlos Ulberg sparks him in 12 seconds. Azamat Mirzakhanov gets him out of there in the second round. And most recently, Volkan Oezdemir gets him out of there in just a minute and a half. So I definitely think the durability is a concern at this point at 38, having been knocked out 3 times in his last 5. If you're going to be in there with another big power puncher, yeah, that's going to be an issue. As far as my pick for this fight, I'm picking Zhang Mingyang by first round knockout. I was tempted by the Menifield dog shot just because he's got the experience. He's pulled off the big upsets before against Umar Sy, he did. But I just don't see him being able to absorb the damage early. He doesn't have the highest fight IQ, so I don't think he's going to make it a point to avoid taking damage early. I just don't think that's his game. I think he's going to get touched up by Zhang Mingyang early in the first round, and I think that power is going to be too much for him to handle at this point. So give me Zhang Mingyang by first round knockout. Sticking with the big boys here, Sergei Pavlovich takes on Tallison Teixeira in a clash of powerhouse knockout artists, I'll say. We'll start with Pavlovich. He is the much more experienced side here at 34 years old. We've seen him fight for a UFC title before. We've seen him go on that long streak of first-round knockouts that included the wins over Tai Tuivasa, Derek Lewis, Curtis Blades. Then he got knocked out early by Tom Aspinall, and things have turned since then. Not necessarily in the worst way. Losing to Alexander Volkov by decision isn't the worst thing after that. I don't think it was like, oh, he lost to Aspinall and just fell off a cliff. Now he's losing to Alexander Volkov. I think the bigger change to me comes in him going to decision in his last 2 and winning against Jairzinho Rozenstruik and Waldo Cortez Acosta. That, I think, just shows an evolution in his game, that he doesn't just need to walk forward, powerhouse, tank, brawl anymore. I think this is a guy who, he's figuring it out through the in-cage experience, not just by having the fights and knocking these guys out. I think he learned from the experience of the Volkov fight in particular that when you can't land the big shot, you gotta be able to find a way to win minutes. And he's gotten better at that. But that is definitely not to diminish his knockout power. When he lets it go, he still lets it go. So there is obviously still the threat there. And when he gets on top, his ground and pound's pretty nasty too, but definitely doesn't look to wrestle too often. Tallison Teixeira on the other side. This is an interesting fighter to me because he's clearly very powerful, athletic, 6'7", so he's very long, tall, going to be a difficult physical matchup for anyone in the division. But his last 2 fights have been pretty unimpressive. Got finished by Derek Lewis in 35 seconds in an odd fight. The stoppage was weird because, you can say he was only getting up because he was grabbing the fence, but you can't stop a fight because a guy's grabbing the fence. You could take a point, but then you're interrupting Derek Lewis pounding on him. I don't know. It was weird. He just got clipped in a wild exchange with a really powerful guy. Hopefully he'll learn from that. Like I said, he's still just 26 years old. What was more concerning is that he came back and instead of showing like an evolved new version, he grappled Tai Tuivasa and unimpressively, to say the least. When Louis Sutherland is beating Tuivasa more impressively than you are, there's a problem. So yeah, I mean that was a really bad look. I think he's still a powerful striker, but he shouldn't go to the grappling. He should just trust his striking early, and he's seriously got to work on that cardio and pacing. As far as my pick for this one, I'm actually far more tempted. I said I thought about Menifield. I'm far more tempted by Teixeira money line here, despite how I just broke that down and the fact that I think it's obvious to anyone that if you're just asking me what happens, I think Pavlovich wins. I think Pavlovich can win if it goes to decision. I think Pavlovich is more likely to even knock him out in the first round. So my pure pick would be Pavlovich by first round knockout. But if you're putting plus 400 on a 6'7", 26-year-old power puncher, I'm interested, to say the least. I mean, just the physical traits of this fight alone make Teixeira an interesting shot. Not to mention Pavlovich, getting knocked out by Tom Aspinall doesn't necessarily signal that you're chinny, but we know he doesn't have a granite chin. It's not impossible to catch this guy early and knock him out. And plus 400 is a huge number for heavyweight MMA in general. That being said, I really don't know if I'm going to get there. I've almost been on the cusp so many times, but I just keep pulling back. And even though there's so much left in the week, I think I'm just getting further and further away from it. Pavlovich just has such an experience edge. He's almost still getting better, I think, than he was. Like, we might still not have seen the best Pavlovich even at 34 years old. Heavyweights can tend to peak later in their career, so I wouldn't be shocked if we see the best version of Pavlovich coming up in the next few years. Look at the guy he lost to, Alexander Volkov. Volkov is arguably as good now as he's ever been, or the run that he had been on when he was beating Cyril Gane and all that is at the later stage of his career. I think he's 39, so it wouldn't shock me to see Pavlovich continue to add or continue to evolve his game. So I'm going to pick Pavlovich by first round KO here. I will say I don't see any props out yet, but if you're going to bet Pavlovich in this or parlay him or anything, I'd probably wait for the KO. I don't think his decision upside is that much after seeing Tallison Teixeira's gas tank in the last one compared to his. I mean, it's not like Pavlovich is some cardio pace machine, excuse me. He's not Merab Dvalishvili at heavyweight, but he'll be there throwing hard punches in the third round. And if Tai Tuivasa could have done that the last time, Tallison Teixeira was ready to go home. The guy was tired. So, I think Sergei Pavlovich gets this one by knockout, probably in the first round, but if not, I do think it comes later anyways. Next, we got a fun one at bantamweight as Kai Asakura is back, taking on Cameron Smotherman. Now, Kai Asakura came into the UFC as the rising bantamweight champion, had a lot of hype around him, ended up fighting Alessandro Pantoja for the flyweight title in his debut, and got choked out. Wasn't actually the worst performance, I think, against Pantoja, especially when you consider it was his debut. Landed a nice stutter left hand, tried the flying knee, just couldn't hang on the ground with Pantoja. And then his next fight, it was kind of exposed that the grappling's a bigger issue than we even thought, because Tim Elliott, when he started getting him down, he dominated him. I mean, Asakura looked pretty good in the striking there, but we know he's going to. That's what Asakura does. He's a very athletic, explosive striker. And with the physical advantage he had against Tim Elliott, he should have dominated him, really. Tim Elliott shouldn't have been able to get that fight to the ground. He should have been able to power his way back up and continue to strike, especially at this stage of Tim Elliott's career. Tim Elliott's a great fighter, an awkward fighter, but the physical advantages in that matchup were outrageous in favor of Kai Asakura, and he couldn't get the win. And now he's moving up to bantamweight, where he's going to have less of those physical advantages. He's not as big a guy. He's not going to be as powerful. So I got to be honest, I don't really like that move for him. On the other side, we got Cam Smotherman. He is a good high-paced boxer. I had pretty low expectations when he came into the UFC, but I think a lot of times you got to ignore a guy's regional tape when they're so young and they come in and just look like a much better fighter. He always looked like a solid boxer and all that, but we've seen through 3 UFC fights now against pretty solid competition. I mean, Jake Hadley's lower level, but that was a debut, and he got the job done there pretty comfortably. Surrey City's a solid fighter who, he's pretty big for a bantamweight. He's going to give you some physical problems, and I thought Smotherman took that fight. And then Ricky Simone, obviously, very tough veteran. We've seen him push guys who are in the rankings, got the win over Merab Dvalishvili even back in the day, and he just was able to grapple him. So I don't think that was the worst look in the world for a young guy to lose because Ricky Simone was able to grapple him. It's going to happen. So I do think he's a solid fighter. I still have some concerns about his durability, having been knocked out on the regional scene like that. But very good high volume boxing. He'll definitely keep up the pace. And that's where I'm going with this. I'm pretty sure Smotherman's going to be my underdog best bet of the week. I'm not officially locking it in. Sorry. I can't lock it in like I did with Choi last time. I'm just not quite there yet. But I do think Cam Smotherman's going to be my underdog of the week, mostly just because this is a fight that I'd expect to go over the 2.5 round point, and I think the longer it goes, the more it favors Smotherman, because I think it's Asakura by knockout or Smotherman by decision, I think is more likely. Unless Asakura's winning a decision based on moments, getting things like big knockdowns and stuff, I see Smotherman being the much higher pace fighter. You know, Asakura likes these clean moments to fire his combos and his flying knees, and Smotherman just goes. Smotherman just puts hands together and puts hands on people, and I think he's going to consistently put hands on Asakura. And if you're giving me over plus 200 on a guy who I think can win the minutes in a fight, sure, he might get knocked out, but I think he's going to be winning more of the minutes than he's going to be losing. And if he can avoid these big moments, I think this is going to look like he could look like a favorite here, to be honest. I think, Kai Asakura is so dependent on moments in this matchup. So with that, yeah, I'm going to pick Cam Smotherman. I'll say he wins by decision, and he's likely going to be my underdog best bet of the week. I'm at the very least probably going to bet him. Although I'm going to wait and see if there's some buyback on Asakura, some parlay action or something, because it got bet down from plus 250, which I believe it was earlier in the week. Late notice replacement fight that I'll go over here quickly, as Jake Matthews takes on Carlston Harris now after Muslim Salikov pulled out. Matthews coming in here, we'll start with him off the controversial third round submission loss where he got Neil Magnied. It didn't appear. The ref stopped the fight in the first round because he thought Magny had been choked out. He wasn't out. The fight continued after Matthews had thought he had won, and in the third round, Matthews got choked out. So very, very odd situation there. Before that, had the submission win that we cashed on against Chidi and Njokuani, wins over Francisco Prado and Phil Rowe, and a decision loss to now top 5 contender Michael Morales. So we know what Jake Matthews is. This guy's been around forever. He is a steady veteran, solid boxing. He showed off the boxing in that great performance against Andre Fialho back in the day, and obviously he is a terrific grappler. Honestly, should probably use his grappling more than he does. We saw him go out there and submit Chidi and Njokuani in a minute, and he almost submitted Neil Magny. I don't know how much to evaluate what happened after that. I imagine the adrenaline dump of thinking you've just won a UFC fight, won your 4th straight, got another finish, back-to-back first-round finishes it would have been, and then being told, no, you've got to fight Neil Magny for 2 more rounds. I don't know. I imagine that would screw with many people. But it does kind of show Jake Matthews is a little hard to trust. He's kind of shit the bed in big moments, or not big moments before, but in fights that he should win. I remember cashing Matt Semmelsberger plus 200 against him after the Fialho fight because it felt like everybody thought he had turned this corner, and I wasn't quite sure. And he hadn't. This is... it's always going to be, I think, the same Jake Matthews. I do unfortunately think he's hit his ceiling because I like him as a fighter. He seems like a good guy, but I think we've kind of seen where Jake Matthews is going to go. On the other side, Carlston Harris, he comes in here, very short notice, 38 years old, lost 3 of his last 5, all by knockout. The guy's a tricky grappler. He does have, he got that late submission win over Jeremiah Wells, put him to sleep. Had the win over Jared Gooden by decision too, which was kind of a weird one. Gooden just had his hands down walking forward, and Harris kept touching him. Bizarre fight. But yeah, his durability has really looked rough lately. Ponzinibbio knocked him out last time. It was the first big shot he ate against Chaos Williams, although it's hard to hold that against him because we just saw what Chaos Williams can do. Knocked out Veretennikov, who had never been knocked out standing before. But still, at 38, I think it's not a great look, and he was getting out-wrestled a lot in that Jeremiah Wells fight. So he's not the best wrestler, decent submission game, not the best boxing, questionable durability. So overall, yeah, I'm going to pick Jake Matthews here. I think it's hard to trust him at the minus 600 or whatever he is right now. So I'd caution against putting him in your parlays just because it would be... I think it's possible for him to get caught in a submission here. Carlston Harris has long limbs, solid Darce choke, and other chokes like that. So I definitely think it's possible for Jake Matthews to end up getting choked out here, but I don't think it's very likely. I'm going to take Jake Matthews. I'll take him by decision here because I don't think he has quite the power or the finishing instincts of the other guys who have finished Carlston Harris, but I do think he's a clear step above in terms of just overall level. Fun one here at flyweight opens the main card as Alex Perez takes on Sumudaerji in a kind of a clash of styles. I don't want to call Alex Perez a wrestler because he showed off the hands in his last 2 wins with knockouts. So just a fun clash, I guess, at flyweight. No styles. Well, a bit of a styles differential. Anyways, we'll start with Alex Perez. Like I said, he's got decent hands, but a bit more of a grappler. Strong wrestler by trade. Saw him have good wrestling success against Asu Almabayev, was able to grapple with Tatsuro Taira and defensively grapple against Muhammad Mokaev, who is extremely high level on the ground, we know. And then he's shown off the boxing in his recent wins with that devastating knockout over Mateus Nicolau, who's unfortunately no longer in the UFC. Was a pretty solid fighter, chinny of course, but solid skill set wise. It was a good win. And last time dominated Charles Johnson, just blew through him. He couldn't miss with the left hook, sent him flying around the octagon. That was a really good performance, really good bounce back to show that, like, hey guys, I'm still here. I can still beat these, lower tier guys. And he did. And, when you look at his losses, I picked Perez in that spot, and I was really happy to get him. I unfortunately took him by decision as a bet, so kicking myself for that forever for backing the durability of Johnson. But it made sense when you looked at the previous fights. I mean, you look at the Almabayev fight, he was ahead in that one before getting caught in the guillotine. The Tatsuro Taira fight, he was competitive with a guy who just went, I would say went 5 rounds, went into the 5th round of a world title fight. And before that you could even argue he beat Muhammad Mokaev there. And Mokaev still undefeated, one of the best in the world. So this guy has the skill set to be one of the best. It's just about, he can't consistently perform. It's hard for him to do it over 3 rounds. He has these lapses or this unfortunate luck. But yeah, I do think he's a very technically skilled fighter now at 34 years old. And it's good to see that he's been able to get the activity issues together. This will be his 3rd fight in the last calendar year, which, I mean, if you had told me a few years ago that Alex Perez was putting together 3 fights a year, I would have been shocked. There was a time this guy was a ritual pullout, like every time he got booked. So it's good to see that for him. It's always tough to see guys' careers get derailed by injury, so it's nice to see that he can at least put together some activity here. On the other side, Sumudaerji is a really long flyweight. He's a tall, long, sharp striker. I feel like I'm talking about my old bets a lot in this video, but we cashed on him by decision against Jesus Aguilar in his last time out as the prop play of the week. Before that, a good win over Kevin Borjas where he just kept him at range, and the win over Mitch Raposo before that, again, just kept the smaller guy at range, avoided the grappling exchanges. And that was his problem earlier in his career. He was just getting... Any time you grappled him, really, he would submit. I mean, even the Matt Schnell fight where he dropped Matt Schnell all over the place, just couldn't put him away. There's one grappling exchange. Schnell gets on top, gets him in the triangle, and that's all she wrote. And then Tim Elliott got him the next fight. Still, I still have some concerns about the ground game, but it's definitely not what it was. He's still just 30 years old, so he's still likely improving. The footwork against Mitch Raposo to avoid the grappling exchanges altogether, I thought was a big improvement to his game. Although the Charles Johnson performance wasn't great. You could say he took a bigger step up after that. He got hurt badly in that one and just outpaced. Overall, man, this is a tough fight to pick for me, but I'm going to lean towards Sumudaerji as the slight dog. He's got that reach advantage. I just think he can circle around and get Alex Perez chasing him here. He's got the hometown behind him, the hometown crowd judging perhaps. And I think he's slightly more likely to finish. I do think Alex Perez can submit him. I think he also has a submission chance here against Alex Perez. Perez, we know, has poor submission defense himself. And I think in the striking, Alex Perez could walk into something. Sumudaerji's power hasn't really shown in a while, but he's been fighting pretty durable competition throughout. So I think it's possible he catches Alex Perez, hurts him, and puts him away here. Overall, I'm going to lean Sumudaerji, and I'll pick him by decision. I'm only going to go over a couple prelims this week because there's a lot of debutant versus debutant matchups. I'm very busy right now, so just to be honest, I do not have time to do enough tape to have a confident take on these. I just mostly do refresher of the last couple fights for guys, and I just don't think I'm going to be able to put together a strong take on some of these fights just shooting straight. That being said, a couple that I do still like, so I'm going to go over those. Aoriqileng versus Cody Haddon here. I think Cody Haddon's a fantastic prospect. I gave him out as the underdog best bet of the week against Malcolm Wellmaker and was gutted when he pulled out of that one. I thought that was a great spot. His debut really impressed me against Dan Argueta. Dan Argueta is a solid fighter. He retired recently. I don't think he's coming back, but he worked with Cub Swanson. And if you go back to the Dan Argueta versus Ronnie Lawrence fight, the guy's a legit grappler who can get on top and wrestle. And Cody Haddon, handled him comfortably. Cody Haddon looked really good in that one, showed off a good, well-rounded game. We know he's got the good grappling. He got the quick sub on Contender Series over Billy Brand, but showed off a lot of that striking too. He's got really good boxing. Speaking of boxing, on the other side, Aoriqileng, mainly just a boxer, not the best grappler, but he did show off the power in his hands last time out against Cody Gibson when he got the knockout in just 20 seconds, caught him with a big right hand. That being said, before that, the loss to Raul Rosas Jr., the weird fight with Daniel Marcos that ended no contest, went over Johnny Munoz, and he got caught by Ayman Zahabi early. Has not been the most active, just one fight in the last couple years, which was that Cody Gibson fight. So he just has 20 seconds of octagon time over the last couple years. Got decisioned by Raul Rosas Jr., which, we've seen happen to a lot of guys, but showed that he can get controlled on the ground there. With that, no shocker here. I'm taking Cody Haddon. I think he's a pretty safe parlay piece, even at minus 350-ish, whatever he is now. I really like him in the spot. I think he's got a massive grappling advantage. I think he's even the better striker. I think Aoriqileng is lucky punch or bust, essentially, in this one. So give me Cody Haddon. I'll say he gets it done by submission, actually, because I do think he is going to be able to get control of Aoriqileng on the back, and I just think he's more aggressive with it than Raul Rosas Jr., or maybe not more aggressive, but I think he's got a better chance to get the sub than Raul Rosas Jr. did in the first place. So give me Cody Haddon by second round submission. Another flyweight one here as Luis Gurule is back already, taking on Ray Tsuruya. We'll start with Tsuruya here as he's the one who was initially booked here. He was booked against Jesus Aguilar, who has the win over Luis Gurule, but Aguilar pulled out. So after Gurule's win, the last time we talked about a UFC card, when he fought Daniel Barres, he's back already. Just a quick 2-week turnaround. Benefit for him is that it's actually not at flyweight. It is at bantamweight. These are flyweights, though, so I introduce it as a flyweight fight. We know how that works, I guess. We'll start with Tsuruya. This guy is super young, just 23, about to turn 24 years old, and he's been in the UFC already for over or about a year and a half or 2 years, almost 2 years since his win over Carlos Hernandez. Not the most active guy. This will be the first time we see him in over a year since that loss to Josh Van. So I'm expecting some pretty big evolution here. The guy is a really good scrambler on the ground, but I do think his striking and his wrestling were lacking. The wrestling in particular, because his striking it's basic, but it's solid enough defensively to work for a grappler. Like, Josh Van wasn't beating him up. He wasn't just letting Josh Van rip shots on him. And it's also because he's in great conditioning and was able to shoot 1,000 takedowns in that fight, which limited Van's offense. But also, I mean, to not let Josh Van overwhelm you have to have good striking basics. You have to pose some kind of threat. That being said, his wrestling in that fight did look poor, which was the reason Josh Van was able to cleanly beat him. He defended most of the takedowns. Tsuruya kind of just dropped to his knees on a lot of the attempts. It wasn't really what we had seen from him in the past, where he was able to get to clinch and do nice work like he did with Carlos Hernandez. He got that really nice chest-to-chest clinch trip against him. He wasn't able to do those things against Josh Van. Just looked way more limited when he was more well-matched athletically. So that was concerning. But with his youth and his scrambling ability, I still think there's a lot of upside with Ray Tsuruya, especially with how long he's been off. I think there could be serious improvements here. On the other side, Luis Gurule, just talked about him last time, so anybody who's watched my videos is familiar with him, I guess. Good pressure striker, solid grappling. I'm not going to spend too long on him. We'll just talk about the Daniel Barras fight, really, because that was his first UFC win, his best look in the UFC. Still got caught by Barras. He just looks slow sometimes. I mean, it was the constant pressure that got him that win, but Barras did look a lot faster. Like that big right hand that he landed in the second round. There was, Gurule just looked like he was a little unathletic in there, I'll say. Maybe unathletic's the wrong word, but it just... he looked like he heavily relied on the pressure and his pure cardio. Like he was the same guy in minute 1 that he was, if he didn't build to be, have more offense in late round 3 than he did in round 1. So that, I think, is where his strength lies, is in that he builds into the fight, not necessarily that he is this great athletic specimen. As far as how I see this fight going, I was really tempted to pick Gurule here because I think he's a good grappler. He's got a solid wrestling base. We've seen him get the submission on the regional scene, and we've never seen him get submitted before. That being said, I look back at a couple of his fights, like getting his back taken early by Nick Piccinini, stuff like that, and I just think he's going to end up engaging in one of these scrambles with Ray Tsuruya where I don't think can hang. If I knew Luis Gurule was going to purely focus on defensive wrestling, disengage, and strike, I would probably end up betting him at plus 185. But I don't know that. And in fact, I think it's not going to be how it goes. I think there's going to be one or multiple occasions, if necessary, where Luis Gurule ends up getting caught up in scrambles with Ray Tsuruya where he just can't compete in that realm, especially with the short notice. Just going through a camp, he might be a little worn down, a little tired. Tsuruya's going to be the fresher, younger guy. Might just beat him to a few positions and end up finding a submission. So I lean Tsuruya by submission here, second round. Although, who knows? It's a long week. Maybe I'll come back around on Gurule. Next, we'll talk some straw weights as Angela Hill takes on the debuting Zhang. I don't think I'm going to attempt to say that name again. Angela Hill comes in here having lost 3 of her last 4. She is a super veteran of the UFC. You could say she spent the vast majority of her career competing near the top of the division, showing good high volume striking and decent grappling, especially near the end of her career. Good defensive grappling, very difficult to submit, even in that brutal fight she had with Mackenzie Dern, where she took a lot of damage, had a lot of time on bottom. She was able to survive. A very tough, durable, dependable fighter. Although she has lost 3 of her last 4 now, Tabitha Ricci, Yasmin Lucindo, Fatima Klein, she's taken on a lot of these younger up-and-coming girls, and I think the athleticism advantage is just kind of catching up to her. She's arguably lost her last 4. Even the Ketlin Souza fight was close. She had the volume. Souza had the maybe more impactful strikes. But yeah, I think at 41, it's kind of, the cliff is coming. It's just been a slow deterioration of like, okay, now all these young up and comers can beat you, and now she's in there. They're putting her in there with someone who's more her speed, her age group. At 38, Zhang comes in here from one championship, also a kickboxer. Showed some good grappling defense. She fought a judo fighter, was able to defend the grappling, and very herky-jerky kickboxing style, good kicks to the body, swings a big left hook over the top. Yeah, not much finishing ability, but does have the 5-round experience. Like I said, and one has competed at the top of one for a long time, being the champion there. The last 4 fights have all gone 5 rounds where she's won a decision. Very good minute winner, very consistent, always in shape, always able to go the 5 rounds without issue. With that, I'm going to lean Zhang to get a decision here. I just think she's going to be the higher output, cleaner striker. I think if anyone's going to grapple, it's going to be Hill, and I don't think she's going to be able to. Zhang has shown pretty good defense. She just shoves the head down on single legs, does the simple things right, which gives me confidence. So give me Zhang here. I do think the price is a little much to be betting or parlaying. Maybe wait and see about a decision prop because she has such limited finishing ability and because Hill is so tough. Probably not going to be any different from the money line, though, if we're being honest. But yeah, as far as my pick, just give me Zhang by decision. All right, in the last fight I'm going to go over here, Loma Lookboonmee versus Jaqueline Amorim at strawweight here. This one's a good clash styles, the Muay Thai fighting of Lookboonmee versus the Jiu-Jitsu of Jaqueline Amorim. We'll start with Lookboonmee here. She's won 4 of her last 5. Had a pretty good UFC record so far. Like I said, she's got that Muay Thai style. Is very evident when you're watching her. Good clinch work, good low kicks. The hands are on point. Did get out grappled in her last fight by Alexia Tainara, although Alexia Tainara is a serious prospect. She's very athletic, very strong grappler. It's going to be very hard for a lot of people to keep her off them. And she was able to avoid the submission when Tainara was able to easily dispatch Molly McCann before that. So I think it's not that bad a sign. I don't think she has fantastic grappling, but she's even used it offensively before against Elise Reed. Elise Reed, obviously, bottom of the barrel when it comes to defensive grappling. But she showed that she is not bottom of the barrel when it comes to offensive grappling because she can submit girls like that. So, definitely a capable grappler and strong enough in the clinch that I think it's hard to take her down in there too. As for Jaqueline Amorim, like I said, this is a very pure jiu-jitsu fighter. She's got her 3 of her last 4 wins are by submission. The one before that, just ground and pounding on Montserrat Conejo. She gets it done early. Very fast starter. She's very strong in the first round. We have seen her fall apart cardio-wise later in fights. Not as big an issue since her UFC debut where that happened, but definitely still a factor. And in her last fight against Inoue, when she was unable to control on the ground, she struggles to kind of force her way into control or do anything. If she's not sitting on the back or choking you out, it's very hard for her to win minutes. So with that, I'm going to lean Lookboonmee. I think she's going to be the minute winner, in particular in rounds 2 and 3. Like I said, Amorim has kind of fixed that gas tank, but I still don't think it's very strong, whereas I trust Lookboonmee's gas tank a lot. I think she's got a clear striking advantage. She's going to be the one doing the damage in this one. If either of them has a hometown advantage, it'll be Lookboonmee. So she'll have whatever slight edge. I'm looking for any edge in this one. It's a very close fight that you could make arguments either fighter could look like a clear favorite in hindsight. But yeah, I'm going to lean Lookboonmee. I'll say she gets it done by decision. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the UFC Doug Las Vegas Pets UFC betting show. If you enjoyed, please leave a like, subscribe. That stuff really helps me out. Leave a comment, talking your most confident picks, your favorite bet on the card, whatever you want. But all that stuff, engagement helps me out. Also, make sure to check me out on socials, Instagram and Twitter, Doug Las Vegas Bets. You will see when I lock in my favorite underdog, my favorite prop, and my 3-leg parlay of the week. With that, thank you one final time. I hope you enjoy having fights back this week, and I will see you again next week.